And I think my presentation will be a good follow-up on some of the things that Jan Gehl started with this morning. I want to talk a little about the strategic level. That is a strategy that we are having for how to get a livable city. And then I'll try to tell a little about how this focus on thresholds can help this strategy. And in the end, if the time will be there, I have some cases to show you how this will turn out to be in real life. So we have this strategy saying that we want to be the most livable city. We did it together with Gehl Architects back in 2009. It is a strategy that is decided by our politicians, which I think is a very, very important thing. If you really want to go for some big change, you really have to have the politicians as a part of those visions, otherwise you will never go anywhere. In this strategy, we are saying that we consider urban life before urban space, and we consider urban space before building. And as Jan Gehl was saying, it sounds so simple, but in daily practice it is so difficult because we are trained in the other way at all the schools in the whole of Europe. I think we are trained as starting with the buildings and then realizing that there might be something in between the buildings. So in daily life it is quite difficult to do that because all the architect is starting from the other way around. In this strategy we are having three very precise goals, saying the first one is that we want more life for everybody. So we say that 80% of all Copenhageners will be satisfied with the opportunity they have for taking part in urban life in 2015. We have another goal saying we want people to walk more. So we say that we want to increase the amount of pedestrian traffic by 20% within 5 years' time as well. And then the third goal is that we want people to stay longer. And we say that 20% has to spend more time in urban space within 5 years' time as well. And then we go out every year making a urban life account. So there is a lot of students, a lot of people at the municipality that is going out in the city counting and observing the daily life of what is happening in the city. So sometimes you can see that there is people with the orange coats sitting in the street counting people. And there is also some interviewing, a big panel of different kind of people. So every year we go and put this for the politicians, saying that we need to do something more precisely on the last. In 2010 we realized that we had been focusing on city life being festivals and a lot of activities, and we could see then talk to the Copenhageners saying that they also wants to be city life to be quiet spaces, and they wanted more nature in the city. So we got a lot of information that we can actually use the day after we have been publishing this city life account. It is now translated also into English, so you can go on the website, and we have now three accounts for 2010, 11 and 12. But what I want to talk about is, if this is the strategy, how can the focus on thresholds actually then create more activities for everyone and make people to walk more in the city? And how can it inspire them to stay longer? And I have 9 points I want to go through. One of the ways that we can actually do it in practice is that we can put more points of entry. This is from an old part of the city, and we know that all the small shops is actually making a lot of interaction between the outside and the inside, between the public and the private life. Having a lot of entrances when we are talking housing is also a way of people going in and out from the city. This is from a new area called Sluseholmen, where there is entrance also at ground floor level to every apartment in this yard. It is also about how can we programming the edge zones, how can we be more aware of having diversity at the edge zones. What we can see is that we always organize our urban space by putting some activities in the middle, but when we go and count on where do people actually stay, we can see that the people is staying at the edge zones between the outside and the inside. So why do we make all the program in the middle? Can be in a way quite stupid, because people is not there. They actually prefer to be close to the buildings. It is also about how can we change all the the big shopping malls, so we can still have the shopping malls, but still have a lot of programming at the edge zones of the shopping mall. This is a new, the Sluseholmen, where you can see there is also a programming close to the waterside, so this is another way of looking at the thresholds and the interaction between the private and the public life at the waterside. It is also about safety and comfort. When we go and make local plans in the city today, we go and put numbers on how much transparency do we actually want. So we say that if there is a lot of people walking, we want 75% of all the facade at ground floor being glass, so that there is this interaction between the inside and the outside. If you want to have a safe city, that is so easy to work with this kind of interaction, because then we can take care of each other just by having eye contact with the people inside. Also in our local plan we say you're not allowed to use reflecting glass, which means that when you're standing on the street you have to have the possibility to look into the buildings so that you can see that this is a school, there is kids there. Every time I go here, this is a school in Ørestad, all the kids will be at the window and we are always waving, because they go close to the window and then the people looking up see that there is a lot of kids in this school, and then we wave to each other. Go and look at the old cities, we can see that at the edge zones between outside and inside, in the old medieval city you can see that there is a lot of variation, and this variation is also a way of actually making people feel good when they are there. So we try to learn from the old cities, the old part of the cities, try to put regulations and mathematics on how can we create variation at ground floor when we go into our local plans. You can do it in a lot of different ways. This is from Carlsberg. I tried to go up there, that was easy, it was very difficult to go down again. It is also about how can we create a community. If we are being aware of that going in and out is also a way of actually meet each other, you can actually use that as a way of creating community in the city. This is from a new house for elderly in Copenhagen. And then of course if you try to look at the edge zone also with some kind of flexibility, in Copenhagen you are allowed to put anything on the first 60 centimeters close to the building. You can do whatever you want, that is, you don't have any permission or anything like that. And last year we started to say that it is free to have chairs and tables on the outside, so it's free for the small restaurants to actually try to inhabit the edge zones in front of it. This is from a housing area close to where I'm living myself. So it's just interesting to try to say to people, just go out and inhabit the space. Then of course there is the opportunities to sit and rest. And because one of the strategies is that we want people to stay longer, this is a way of actually getting the strategy together with the way that we also design the city. And one of the last thing is that we can work with trying to have this zoning between the private and the public. So you can go and try to close to the city, close to the buildings that can be half public or half private, but this trying to zone that you can be aware of where you want people to stay is a way of getting this interaction. This is a new social housing in the city, and the dimension of this zoning between the private, the half public, and the public flow of people walking through is so beautiful. It's very, very narrow, and centimeters means a lot when you are going into this zoning. And then of course there is the functions, also being aware of that different kind of function at ground floor is also a way of getting this interaction between the outside and the inside. So we just got we made some research in the city together with the ministry on if we could get numbers on livability and city life. And what we realized was that when you have diversity at ground floors, you hire the value of the estate. So that is so interesting when we then go to dialogues with all the investors and the developers, actually saying, if you are aware of getting diversity at ground floor, your estate will actually be more valuable within just 10 and 20 years. And therefore we can start to discuss business cases like ground floor, saying if you lower the rent at ground floor for the first 10 years, then we know that it will pay off in the end of it. And we can see now that the investors is actually trying to think their business cases in this way. We're doing it in Northern Harbour, and I just had a discussion with a totally private client the other day saying that he wanted to go in to make a business case with the low rent for the first year at his new building. So it is so interesting to make this research and try to make it into practice afterwards. What is difficult in practice is often that there is one architect designing the building, another architect designing the landscape. Maybe it is also two different clients. And how can you actually get those people to talk together? How can you demand that you want to have a drawing with the situation outside combined with the ground floor of the building? Nobody is paid to make that drawing. So therefore it is so difficult to start to discuss how can we actually interact with this. So now when we're making competitions and drawings, we say that this is the most important drawing that we are having from the city. So this is the first drawing we want to see, that is how we can interact those things. And sometimes it's just so interesting because just by demanding that drawing, we know that they will start to talk together. And just by talking together, everything will actually be a lot better. And then of course, it is also when you're going down to ground floors, it has so much to do with human scale. It has so much to do with the difference from what do you see from 160 eye level when you're standing and 120 eye level when you're sitting. And being aware of those small nuances between eye levels and distance from one people to another people is so important when you're going to design this in the end. This is a case, one of the cases. This is from Carlsberg. It is the old brewery site at Copenhagen. It has been fenced for almost all the time that it has been there. In 2006 they opened up and we started to develop it into a new neighborhood in Copenhagen. The principle, it is a master plan that is run by a Danish office called Entasis, and the principle is based on the knowledge from all the medieval cities and then try to put it into a new plan. So it is 5 to 6 floors, and then there is some high-rise building as icons or iconic point of view when you're going around the city. So the high-rise is how to connect with the city, and then when you are at eye level, you have the focus especially on the ground floor. This is a map showing what is existing building and what is new building. The dark one is the existing one and the new one is new ones. And you can see that there is no direct lines. It is all like organized like some kind of medieval city. It's the structure from the old cellar that has been put on ground floors. What we go and do when we make the local plan is that we try to categorize the different kind of ground floors. So the red one is the active facade, which is which means that there is a lot of activities. The blue one is open facades, and the green one is the more private facade. So we go in putting mathematics into what an active facade actually is. So we go and say that there should be an entrance for at least every 6 meters. We say that it has to be 75% transparency. When we go to the open facade, it has to be an entrance at least every 10 meters, and we try to put mathematics to all this. And also we try to put different designed parameters for the different edge shows, if it has to be narrow, or if it has to be very narrow or broad, wide, and put different kind of mathematics to that. Then we make, instead of making regulations on how the architecture should look, we try to put mathematics on what architecture should do to human, and therefore we make urban space catalog instead of putting regulations and drawings of how we think the facade should look like. And then we go down to the specific urban space and make a map like this, saying that there should be a zone for vegetation because there would be wind problems. There should be a zone for staying longer. There should be zoning for staying on a short-time basis. So there is a lot of different regulations on the urban space, if we want it to be wide or narrow, if we want the edge zones to be temporary, active, open, and moderate. And that plan, we are now starting to make it into reality. This is a temporary space from the area, showing that working with the edge zone, just talking about that this is such an important zone, is turning a lot of different temporary projects ahead. So this is one of the temporary projects out there, and we just started now. We are building a new school where we have had all the discussion about the ground floors and how we get this livable city. And this is also a project with the new housing close to the new school. And I just think it's a good example of how it turns out in reality. This is still a visualization, so they are not starting to build it yet. But you can see at the ground floor that it is totally different from the other buildings. So even though this is a totally new building, there is this focusing on what kind of atmosphere and what kind of what do we want to give back to the people that is living at this area. So it's an old colonnade, and there is space for seating. It's possible to look into the building. There is a lot of entrances. Because we have this regulation, the client wants now to make a small exhibition site instead of just having something, not giving anything back to the city. So the regulation is actually a very good tool of discussing with the clients what we are going to build and what we are going to have, what kind of functions we have at the ground floors. And because it is a part of the local plan, it is decided by our politicians. Our politicians voted yes for it because they could see that it was connected with the strategy that they decided years ago. There is a good line between the strategy, the master plan, and then the single project in the end. And I think that the people that are going to live in this building would be more happy than they would be at the modernistic plan that Jan was showing before. How much time? 1 minute? So then I have another case. We are working in Copenhagen, we are working with neighborhood improvement. So this is in the existing part of the city, where we go in, make an office, move them into the city, try to be a part of the neighborhood. I can tell you a lot about that. The case I want to tell you about is that we did a catalogue in this area. We did a catalogue focusing on how can we transform the private road in this area. It's private, so we can't do anything at municipality. But we made a catalogue trying to show to all the people living there that they can change the edge zones in another way. And then we hired a designer to design it and put numbers on what does it cost. So they were not going to have the designers. They were just putting out saying, well, we want 2 of them and 1 of them and 2 of them. And then we take care of the design, being aware of having a coherence in the city altogether. And now they turn this asphalt into very nice edge zones, connecting the outside from the inside, having small seats so people can sit there, meet their neighbors when they're coming home. They take care of the greenery themselves. They can choose different kind of greenery. So there is a lot of also uniqueness from one entrance to another entrance, and also the corner will be a part of where people can stay longer and sit longer. I have 3 very quick cases. 1 minute? This is a school. We now got a new politics saying that we do not want the school to be fenced, so we opened them up. So you can see there is just going from the public to the private is here just one flow, so everybody can use the school space, and the kids still know what kind, because there is a bench all around, they know this is the schoolyard, but they are allowed to go outside. This is another private bank. In our local plan, we say that no one is allowed to fence their area. So this is an open public park for everybody, even though it is private area, and even though it is a private bank that is there. The zoning between the outside and inside is so beautifully done, because it gets down to scale, to a human size. It's public at ground floor, but it's private, so the bank people is smoking on the balcony, but they can have eye contact with the public people on the ground floor. It's a very, very nice design, a very beautiful way of getting that strategy into a scale of 1-to-1. Vestervoldgade is a street in Copenhagen where there was a lot of traffic before. We turned it into having a wide, broad pedestrian area at the sunny side. So we opened it up so there is a new connection between the outside and the inside. There is a lot of different programming. This is close to the school, so now the school will also turn out on the street. I went there with a group of people and there was someone doing gymnastics, and then we passed by and they say, "Welcome to Copenhagen." And in a way I thought this is a very nice introduction to the city if people is doing gymnastics in the city. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.